But first tonight, gambling. We've heard more than enough in recent times from the politicians and the clubs on the poker machine debate, and we know that the ACT has been earmarked for a special trial next year. But we rarely hear from people who are considered problem gamblers. Well, this week we do. A man who's been to the brink and back, and he's opening up tonight to Adam Shirley about those dark days.
I once heard them described quite a long time ago as fiscal vacuum cleaners, and that's exactly what they are. They suck up every bit of cash around, and I felt like at times I was losing my life $1 a time.
Chris Barrett has been addicted to pokies for over 20 years. His relationship with them dates back to his childhood, playing Saturday sport with his dad.
We'd go down to one of the clubs after the hockey match and he'd be there with his mates playing the poker machines, and I'd be sitting off to one side with a glass of Coke watching and thinking that was all kind of grown up and wishing I could be there. And in terms of when I started playing them, pretty much the first year I started work, so when I was 18. In my 20s I drank to excess as well, and I decided to deal with that because it was affecting my health very badly, and I also was kind of fooling myself that, you know, my real addiction is alcoholism, and once I sort of sobered up a bit, I thought, gee, what I do with poker machines is well beyond an enthusiastic pastime.
How long would you play for in any given session?
Until I absolutely had to be somewhere else, or I ran out of money, usually when I ran out of money, or until the club closed.
So are we talking hours, multiple hours, half a day?
6 hours would be not uncommon, yeah. If I was taking a day off work, which I sometimes did, it would be all day, and if the money survived, all night as well.
Chris has tried several times to beat his addiction. He says pokies were his favourite flavour of drug.
For me, other kinds of gambling didn't have all of the elements. It didn't have the throughput, it didn't have the isolation, it didn't have those mechanical attractions. About the closest that I got was playing roulette in a casino, but even then it was too personal. I had to interact with a croupier, there were people sitting next to me on the same table. It wasn't fast enough. Even when there's no stress in your life, it's an automatic behaviour, and I don't mean it to sound like I was not conscious and then suddenly woke up and found myself in a club. It's more like without any conscious thought about what are you doing, I would find myself on the way there. Your conscious mind isn't on the job 24/7, but your subconscious is. So when you're fighting yourself, you're going to lose. And so willpower is not what does it.
The damage to Chris's life and those around him has been immeasurable.
I used to scoff at those people who would say, is it payday this week? You know, I've forgotten. I thought, how can you not know? I mean, I knew to the second when payday was. If I'm constantly dealing with no money and depression, it takes a pretty special person to endure that. And there were some special people in my life who did endure it for quite a while, but one way or another the relationship broke up.
Did it clean you out?
Absolutely. In one sense, though, the actual amount is irrelevant. The only figure that's relevant is everything I had. And if I was on $20,000 a year, that's how much it would have been. If I was on $200,000 a year, that's how much it would have been.
It's taken courage for Chris Barrett to speak out. Most don't. Research from the Australian National University shows problem gamblers not only don't ask for help, but also fail to admit they've even got a problem.
There's an awful lot of stigma about it. When people around me didn't know, and there would be discussions about things, the issue of gambling would come up, and particularly poker machines, and people would make the most vitriolic, judgmental, harsh statements about it, sometimes simply because they had this sense of prejudice about it. So you're very loath to come out about it because, well, how are they going to look at me? What are they going to say?
Oh, let's hear those voices. Wilkie, leave our clubs alone. Wilkie, leave our clubs alone.
Chris Barrett has been watching the debate about mandatory pre-commitment closely. He prefers other options, such as reducing maximum bets, slowing down machine spin rates and removing ATMs from clubs. Options he thinks are cheaper and more effective.
There are this whole raft of measures, and because we've fixated on this one allegedly perfect solution, we've ignored all these others, all of which could have been implemented and all of which would have focused the real attention on where the objections are coming from. The clubs industry, really its objection is self-interest. I think the Productivity Commission's report said 40% of machine revenues come from problem gamblers. So if you're talking about what a club uses as its revenues to provide services to its members and provide the pittance to community support, 40% of that comes from human misery. So if they are really going to take the moral high ground, they have to be prepared to say, we will forego 40% of our income.
Chris is adamant that speaking to people about his addiction is helping him get over it. He's been not using, as he puts it, for 18 months.
I've actually got a little challenge coming up, which is I'm attending a friend's wedding in Young in a couple of weeks, and the reception's in a club. But fortunately, the people that are there with me are work colleagues, and I'll be giving them instructions to... I don't think I'm at risk, but it never hurts to have people help you. There are a number of personal things in my life that are quite challenging and could be a bit grief-filled. But even despite all of those things, I'm still able to see the joy in life. And putting all of the current bad things on one side of the ledger and putting I'm not gambling anymore on the other side of the ledger, I think I'm still in front.
Adam Shirley with that report.